Good morning. It's Thursday, the 26th of December. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here at ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. In an unexpected sign, the months-long political impasse could be drawing to an end. Korea's ruling and main opposition parties agree to pass key bills at next week's General Assembly session, including ones for the 2014 budget and spy agency reforms. After evading arrest during a police raid Sunday, a union leader and 3 other members find refuge at a temple in downtown Seoul. While the police have set up checkpoints outside the temple, the union has asked the religious sector to help resolve the over 2-week-long crisis. Plus, in its toughest step yet, Egypt's military-backed interim government declares the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organisation. The move gives the authorities even more leeway to crush the Islamist group. In an effort to end the prolonged parliamentary deadlock, leaders of Korea's 2 main political parties met on Christmas Day, after which they agreed to pass key pending bills next Monday. The bills include ones for next year's budget and spy agency reforms. Hwang Jie reports.
Could Korea's rival parties be ready to lay down their swords and pass a number of key bills that have been held up over bipartisan bickering in recent months? Officials from the ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition Democratic Party met on Wednesday and agreed to pass next year's budget bill this coming Monday. The 357.7 trillion won, or roughly $340 billion budget plan for 2014, drawn up by the government in September, has been stuck in the legislature amid a deadlock between the ruling and main opposition parties over allegations that the National Intelligence Service tried to sway public opinion in favor of now President Park Geunhye ahead of last year's presidential election. To that end, the 2 parties also agreed on Wednesday to pass a bill on reforming the NIS. Additional talks on the details are scheduled to run through Friday. The Christmas Day agreement, however, does not resolve all the pending issues at the National Assembly. The ruling and opposition parties remain at odds over a series of bills aimed at revitalizing the economy, which is suffering from sluggish growth. President Park Geunhye urged policymakers earlier this month to pass the legislation, saying it's needed in order to maintain the momentum of recovery seen among record-high exports this year. Hwang Jie, ARIRANG News.
As the country's rail strike rumbles through the midway point of its 3rd week now, at least 4 union members, including one of the leaders, are now holed up inside a Buddhist temple in downtown Seoul in an attempt to evade arrest. Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
17 days in, the railway union and the government remain deadlocked. At least 4 union members, including Deputy Labor Union leader Park Tae-man, all of whom evaded arrest during a police raid in Seoul on Sunday, have reportedly sought refuge inside the Chogyesa temple in the capital. Around 250 police officers have set up outside to arrest any of the individuals should they set foot outside the temple, but authorities say they have no immediate plans to send officers in. The union spokesman Baek Sung-gun said the union members entered the temple on Tuesday night. He also urged the government and the state-run railway operator KORail to halt plans to create a new railway operator, which the union says is a step toward privatization.
We ask for the public's understanding about why we were so desperate as to seek help from religious circles as we try to protect ourselves from authorities.
The country's political rival parties are divided on how the authorities are handling the standoff. The ruling Saenuri Party says the union should stop using the temple for personal gains and should turn themselves in. The main opposition Democratic Party says the police operation around the temple is inappropriate and call for a better approach to resolve the conflict. The current standoff was prompt after the union declared an indefinite walkout on December 9th in protest of a plan to form a subsidiary that will manage New Korea train express routes departing from southern Seoul. The government has denied since day one of the strike that it's moving toward privatization saying instead that management of the railway operator must improve, pointing to its debt of $16.6 billion. But the railway union members show no signs of backing down. They call for rallies throughout the nation on Thursday and a large-scale protest in Seoul on Saturday. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
North Korea has demanded South Korean President Park Geunhye decide whether her policy towards the North is based on trust, which she says it is, or confrontation. In a statement on Wednesday, Pyongyang's committee that handles inter-Korean affairs said the Park administration needs to choose whether it wants to continue on its path of confrontation and war, a policy that will only lead to self-destruction. Seoul's Unification Ministry says the South Korean government does not feel the need to respond to each and every one of Pyongyang's quote-unquote rude remarks, but did add Seoul plans on announcing its official stance on the matter later on this Thursday. President Park's so-called trust-building policy aims to thaw relations with Pyongyang by rebuilding trust. On Christmas Day here in South Korea, President Park visited a group home for children in western Seoul to share the holiday spirit. The presidential office says President Park's visit to the SOS Children's Village, named the most outstanding child support facility by the Welfare Ministry, was aimed at giving some inspiration to the children and listening to the needs of the staff. It was President Park's first visit to a children's facility since taking office. On Christmas Day last year, the then President-elect Park delivered meals to senior citizens living alone in the capital. And people across Korea celebrated Christmas on Wednesday by gathering at cathedrals and churches for masses and services. Park Ji-won reports.
On Christmas Day, churches across Korea welcomed the birth of Jesus with religious services.
I wish you all had a grateful and joyful morning, thanking God for His love.
At Myeongdong Cathedral, the main Catholic church in central Seoul, Archbishop Andrew Soo-jung presided over a Christmas Mass at noon, attended by hundreds of people. He stressed simplicity and humility in the way of Jesus and urged people to try and understand other people's pain.
I hope you will all be more humble and lower yourselves to embrace the pain of the world.
He also called on people to share God's love with their neighbors, including those in North Korea. Over at the Vatican, Pope Francis presided over his first Christmas Eve Mass since becoming the leader of over the world's 1.2 billion Catholics in March. Some 10,000 people and more than 300 cardinals, bishops, and priests attended the Mass at St. Peter's Basilica to celebrate Jesus' birth. The 77-year-old Pope urged people to stop focusing on themselves and open up their hearts to God and their neighbors.
If we love God and our brothers and sisters, we walk in the light. But if our heart is closed, if we are dominated by pride, deceit, self-seeking, then darkness falls within us and around us. Do not be afraid. Our Father is patient. He loves us. He gives us Jesus to guide us.
Pope Francis also delivered a message of hope, especially for those who remain in darkness in the world, that they will see light, citing a famous Bible quote from the book of Isaiah. The first non-European pontiff in 1,300 years will also lead a year-end Mass at the Basilica, followed by a New Year's Mass next week. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Yes, and Pope Francis has used his first Christmas Day speech as pontiff to tell thousands of pilgrims in the Vatican to pray for aid, access and peace in Syria. Speaking to the masses in St. Peter's Square, the Pope told Catholics to pray for a peaceful end to the violence.
Let us continue to ask the Lord to spare the beloved Syrian people further suffering and to enable the parties in conflict to put an end to all violence and guarantee access to humanitarian aid.
He also called for peace in Iraq, a successful outcome in talks between Israelis and Palestinians, and greater efforts to prevent tragic incidents involving migrants trying to reach Europe being repeated. Pope Francis also reached out to non-religious people, asking them to join with people of faith in the pursuit of peace and a better world. And the Christmas spirit continues to descend upon large parts of the world, from the front lines in Afghanistan to the typhoon-ravaged Philippines. Son Jung-in shows us how this special holiday is being observed around the globe.
In Beijing, people gathered at a cathedral in the capital for a mass on Christmas Eve, where they made wishes ahead of the new year.
I came here to pray for prosperity in the coming year and for the health of my family.
In Afghanistan, the tension of the war is still palpable, but on Christmas, soldiers stationed there lay down their arms to pray for peace and to see their families again.
I want to send a message to my family that I love them and that I promise to return to my country safe and sound.
Over in the Philippines, which saw devastation on a massive scale when a typhoon struck in November, people gathered at a cathedral to share the spirit of the season. People in some of the affected areas are still without electricity or water, and many find it hard to expect Christmas gifts this year, but they're grateful to be alive.
But we have to move on because life is not going backwards, it's moving forward.
In England, Queen Elizabeth II said in her annual Christmas message, it is important to pause and take stock of big events amid life's distractions. She also stressed the need to achieve the right balance between action and reflection. The people of the world may all be in different situations, but they all share one wish in common: love and peace this Christmas season and into the new year. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Mortar shells struck an area close to where Korea's peacekeeping force in South Sudan is stationed on Wednesday. No Korean troops were injured, but several soldiers from Nepal were wounded in the blast. This incident comes as the United Nations intensifies efforts to end the bloodshed in South Sudan, where thousands of people are believed to have died over the past 10 days. Meanwhile, the controversy of whether Korean peacekeepers in South Sudan asked for additional ammunition from Japan continues. The Korean government has made clear that, unlike Japan's explanation, the request was made to the UN channel first. Korea's foreign ministry also dismissed claims that Seoul's actions could be used to support Tokyo's pursuit of collective self-defense. There has been a dramatic escalation of tensions in Egypt after the country's military-backed interim government declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Egypt's Deputy Prime Minister announced the move on Wednesday, which now criminalizes all of the Muslim Brotherhood's activities, giving authorities more power to crack down on the Islamist movement. The Muslim Brotherhood has been waging violent protests on a near-daily basis now since a military coup toppled President Mohamed Morsi back in July. The decision came a day after officials blamed the Brotherhood for a suicide bombing at a police station near Cairo that killed 16 people. Turkey's government has been plunged into turmoil after 3 cabinet ministers resigned over a corruption inquiry in the space of a single day. Announcing a major reshuffle Wednesday, Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan named 10 new ministers, almost half his total roster, after talks with President Abdullah Gül. Police are probing allegations of illegal money transfers to Iran and bribery for construction projects. The ministers who stepped down did so after their sons were taken into custody in relation to the investigation. All 3 deny any wrongdoing. 2 bombs in Christian areas of the Iraqi capital Baghdad have killed at least 35 people. Officials say the first bomb went off as worshippers were leaving the church after a Christmas Day service, killing 24. Another bomb exploded in a crowded market at a separate, mostly Christian area, killing another 11 people. No one has yet admitted carrying out the attacks. The violence targeting the country's Christian community has increased steadily since the fall of Saddam Hussein in 2003. One of Korea's leading research institutes has developed a new technology that allows smartphones to instantly connect with other devices without the fuss of exchanging contact information. Paul Lee shows us how this visual communication technology could revolutionize how people interact.
Movies often portray smartphones as futuristic devices that can instantly connect and control their digital environment, all without the need of tech support. But that future may be closer than we think. A new technology developed here in Korea aims to do away with punching in passwords or email addresses when users want to connect with each other and nearby devices. It's a technology called visual communication that's been developed by the Electronics and Telecommunication Research Institute, or ETRI.
The target device is shot at with a radio beam. The beam then helps to automatically find the target device using the imaging technology. In principle, this should allow for communications connections to be quickly established.
The new technology has numerous advantages when compared to current standards on the market. First, it works independently from a base station, which allows for direct communication between devices without a wireless network. Since it uses radio waves, data connections can be operated as far as 70 meters apart, and connecting to new devices is as easy as taking a picture. In theory, theaters could urgently inform moviegoers of a fire emergency, or customers at a restaurant could download a menu by pointing their smartphones towards the sign. Researchers predict the efficient and fast connecting technology will also help push wearable smart devices such as glasses into the mainstream market.
The market creation effect of these proximity-activated mobile services is quite large. One can estimate this market creation effect to be worth roughly about $950 million.
If adopted as an international standard, the fusion of visual and wireless communication has the potential to usher in a new era of mobile services and greater convenience for consumers. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Now, books are a good barometer of what people think, want and feel, and the most popular books can also tell us what's going on in a society. Our Song Ji-son has a roundup of the best-selling books of 2013.
What did you read this year? You might get all the information you need from the internet or your smartphone, but still, most people turn to trusty paperbacks.
I browsed through the bestsellers and I'm interested in books on the humanities. Today I picked up this book called One Thing, which helps you see what's important in life and focus on that one thing.
I buy 2 to 4 books every time I go to the bookstore, and I mostly look for books on different hobbies. I want to read more books on travel and hiking in the new year.
And the best-selling book this year was by a Buddhist monk whose tweets were read by those in need of advice or lessons on life. Healing continues to be the keyword for this year, too, with people turning to books for consolation. Reflecting a trend, Venerable Heaven's mentoring essay, Things You Can Finally See When You Stop, has topped the bestsellers list for 2 consecutive years. In the meantime, fiction made a comeback in 2013. Novels by foreign and domestic authors dominate top 5 of the best books of the year, with French psychiatrist François Lelord's Hector and the Search for Happiness, and Korean literature legend Cho Jung-le's latest book, Great Jungle. But when you take a look at numbers 6 through 10, there are more practical books, including self-help books like Tong Fu and The Power of Habit. By age group, the number of books bought by people in their teens and 20s has continued to drop in recent years, while the amount bought by those in their 40s to 60s and over has risen.
The number of books bought by young readers drops every year, and they spend more time with their smartphones and other entertainment devices. What's also interesting to note here is that the baby boomer generation, people now in their 50s, are the best customers these days.
2 TOEIC test study guidebooks also made it onto the top 20, reflecting how much time and effort Koreans are putting in to improve their English. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with yet another award given to figure skater Kim Yeon-ah. This time it was the 2013 U.S. Sports Academy Female Athlete of the Year. Now, through an online voting, the 23-year-old figure skater beat out names like Serena Williams and Misty Franklin to win her second award since receiving the honors back in 2010. Now, Kim Yeon-ah's amazing return from her hiatus resulted in the top honors as tennis star Rafael Nadal received the Male Athlete of the Year award. Meanwhile, Kim Yeon-ah is preparing for the upcoming National Figure Skating Championships set to take place early next month. And moving on, for 16-year-old Lydia Ko, it was time for her to part ways with her swinging coach Guy Wilson after all these years of training under him. And now taking over the job will be Sean Hogan of the David Ledbetter Golf Academy. Now, Lydia Ko is now spending most of her time in the U.S. after earning her LPGA Tour membership, parted ways with her longtime coach because of the distance. She stated that Wilson, who lives in New Zealand, cannot be with her in the U.S. and has decided to hire Sean Hogan as her new swinging coach. Meanwhile, David Ledbetter made comparisons to Annika Sorenstam when talking about Lydia Ko's ability to play golf. And speaking of changes, after agreeing to a 7-year, $130 million deal with the Texas Rangers, chances are Chu Shin-soo might have to change positions once again. Now, the Texas Rangers outfield, which includes Leonis Martin in center field and Alex Rios in right field, has the left field position open and might be filled by the South Korean slugger. While nothing is said for sure, Chu played 588 games in right field, 160 games in center, and just 61 games in left field. But no one seems to be worried as the 31-year-old shifted positions before when he moved from right field to center after being traded to the Cincinnati Reds last season. And moving on to some Wednesday night KBL action, a lot of fans showed up to the arenas on Christmas as they saw Incheon Itilan Elephants crush KCC Aegis 86-61, with the LG Sakers cruising past KT Sonic Boom 71-66. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the two Seoul teams square off as the Seoul SK Knights took on the Seoul Samsung Thunders. Now, first quarter of the game, SK spreading the ball around well as 6 players scoring the quarter compared to the 2 that score for Samsung as they take a 22-10 lead after the first quarter. Second quarter, SK's Courtney Sims goes insane, scoring 15 points in the quarter as SK goes into halftime with a huge 52-26 lead. Samsung tries to change things up in the second half of the game as they outscore SK in each of the next 2 quarters, but the 26-point deficit after the first half is too large as SK hangs on to take this game 83-68, with Courtney Sims finishing the game off with 34 points and 14 rebounds. And finishing things off with some Wednesday night's V-League action, Daejeon KGC were able to dominate the Hunguk Insurance Life Pink Spiders 3-0 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Korean Air Jumbos take on the Samsung Hwanja Blue Fangs over on the men's side. Now, first set, a rather close set here, but Korean Air dominates with the serve aces and blocks as they take the first set 25-22. Second set, Korean Air continues to cruise through with Samsung Hwanja's offense struggling on the night. Even with Leo Martinez putting up 38 attack points, Michael Sanchez and Shin Young-soo combined for 42 points as the Korean Air Jumbos end their 5-game losing streak with a 3-0 victory. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to check in on the weather conditions in Korea and around the world. And that's all for now. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We'll be back at noon Korea time, but in the meantime, you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr/news.